last week we started on the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, part 1. In fact, in the part 1, we did not cover any of the 10 topics, but it was rather a background about the origin of Srimad Bhagavatam and some histories behind. And we also, I just want to bring that up again, is there are 3 scriptures that we actually consider the topmost. Bhagavad Gita, that is like a foundation which starts with war but ends with Saranagati. And then Srimad Bhagavatam, that starts with Saranagati and picks up and then ends with Nama Sankirtan. And then the next one is Chaitanya Charitamrita. And this is all manifested by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's history and all his teachings. That starts with Nama Sankirtan and ends with Krishna Prema. Now, if you see the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita, what are the 5 topics that the Bhagavad Gita is really talking about? Ishvara, the Supreme Lord; Jiva, the living entities; Prakriti, the nature; and Kala, the time; and Karma, the activities of the Jivas. Now, of these 5, all the first 4 are eternal. They don't have any beginning and they don't have any ending. But however, karma is the only one which has beginning and also has an ending. So the karma starts as soon as the jiva is really coming into the material world, and then it really accumulates the karmic reactions, and it's really being born again and again and again. And then until it really gets liberated, the karma continues. So there is a beginning and there is an ending. But then we talk about 10 topics of Bhagavatam. They are actually quite complex. Sarga, elemental creation; Visarga, secondary creation; and Sthanam, that planetary systems. These are the 3 things that I would like to cover for today. Then the remaining Poshanam, protection by Lord; Utyaha, creative impetus; and Manvantara, different Manus; Isha, Anukata, science of God; and Nirodha, the dissolution; the Mukti, that's the liberation; and Ashraya, the supreme shelter. So all these remaining 7 topics I will be covering as we go. Now, alright, we talked about the topics of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 5 topics. Then we also talked about the Bhagavatam, 10 topics. What exactly topic that is in Chaitanya Charitamrita? It's very simple. Only one. There is only one topic. That is Prema. Pure love for Krishna. That's the only topic throughout. Okay? And now today 3 topics from Srimad Bhagavatam we are planning to cover is Sarga, elemental creation; Visarga, secondary creation; Sthanam, the planetary systems. Now Sarga, when we really talk about Sarga, the elemental creation, we are talking about the 5 elements: Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jalam, and Bhumi. Akash means space. It has no limit. There is no big, because this is endless. There is Akash, it's space. That is also attributed to ether element. And the Vayu, air, because this Akash is first filled by the Vayu, and then Agni is actually coming into picture, and then Jalam, then Bhumi, right? So now if you see that all the elements all came from the pores of Mahavishnu. So Mahavishnu is a manifestation of Sri Krishna and all the way down through Sriman Narayana. And from Mahavishnu's pores is basically all the Brahmandas. We call galaxies or clusters or supercluster. Everything manifests from his pores. So then he is really floating in a place between spiritual and the material space. He is in between, because he is actually dealing with the material aspects, but he is spiritual. So he is floating in between and producing so many Brahmandas. When he is breathing through him, breathing through the pores also, he is actually breathing. Like for example, our body also, the pores in our skin, they are also breathing. So now his pores throughout, they are all breathing Brahmandas out, and then again breathing in, they all go back back to him. It's the same way I told you that he is actually material. He is really at the place where the spiritual and the material both are there. What is material again? Jivatma is material. So we actually, all the Baddha Jivas, they really emanate from the stomach of Mahavishnu, belly of Mahavishnu. Now, if you see that in Hinduism, there is something called Virat Purusha. Who is this Virat Purusha? He is none other than the cosmic egg that is coming from Mahavishnu's pores. From where then Lord Brahma appears and so on. The same concept is also, we can find that in Jainism, where it is believed that the universe shape is in the form of a cosmic man and broader at the top. So what you really see on the left side, that is right from Jainism. Okay, the top top and bottom are broad, and then in between is actually, in the middle is actually narrow. So as I said, who is this Virat Purusha? Purusha Shuktam. All the whole Vedic hymn is all about this Virat Purusha. That is the Purusha Shuktam is about. So this is a cosmic egg from Mahavishnu. And when this egg hatches, remember from the pores, this is what is coming. It's actually first it really comes as eggs only. Okay, not straight away it doesn't come as Brahmanda. It comes as so many eggs are coming out. So that is what is called, each one is called Virat Purusha. When that Virat Purusha is hatched, a godly personality in the form of a boy actually appears. He gets hungry and he is looking up and down, nothing to eat. And then Sri Krishna gives darshan, and Sri Krishna arranges his food. Offerings will be given, whatever the food eventually going to Sri Krishna. Remember, all the whatever that prayers and anything that anyone really does, everything goes to Sri Krishna only, right? That's what we studied that in the Bhagavad Gita as well. Out of that, 1/16 of that goes to Krishna, is given to Lord Narayana. And then, who is the Lord of the universe. And the 15th, 16th, that means remaining, all going to Virat. Sri Krishna does not really take any of them. All the things, all the praising, all the food, any offering that we really give, everything, eventually goes out only. So Lord Krishna doesn't really hold anything. He just gives it out. So Krishna said to the Virat Purusha, "Oh child, say what do you desire, what do you want?" And the boy asked, he said, "Oh, thou omnipresent, let me have pure bhakti to your lotus feet." Sri Krishna then spoke, "Oh child, yes, let you remain as precious ever like me, and you will not have any fall. Even if innumerable Brahmas pass away, nothing will happen to you." And this is how the whole the Virat Purusha coming into the manifestation, and then that Virat Purusha himself is offered as a yajna. So basically he himself is consumed, and like the scientists say, a big bang happens, where all the universes and galaxies and whatever, basically the whole Brahmandas actually coming from this cosmic egg called Virat Purusha. So the Big Bang theory, in one way we can actually say that it is actually just an imagination. But there is support. Indirectly, it really means something similar in our scriptures. So this is actually, that's what, because the whole thing is in the yajna, it's all in the fire, all completely, his whole body is given up. And that is what is manifesting as all the Brahmandas. So it is akin to the Big Bang theory. Now let us look at the elemental creation little more detail. If you see in our Brahmanda, we see 5 elements. Ether, that is sky, or called Akash. Air, that is called Vayu. Fire, that is Agni. And water, that is Jala. And earth, that is Bhumi. If you see that these elements actually have a seniority, top to bottom. What is seniority? Without a sky, without Akash, no air, no fire, no water, no earth can be accommodated. So you need space. And the one important aspect of the Akash is sound. It is ether. Everything is connected through this. The sound can actually go in the sky. Then the air element comes. Air element has the sound and also the touch. Okay, so you look at the qualities, we are adding more and more now. Okay, so ether based Akash has only the qualities of sound. But air has sound and as well as touch. Isn't it? When the air actually blows, that actually we can feel it. So there is a touch involved. Then from air element and the Akash, then the fire element comes. Agni forms. Agni will have, yes, you can actually, the sound passes through fire also. It has a touch, of course, if you touch, you will be burning your finger anyway, but you can touch. And also it has a form now. Air doesn't have a form, but a fire has a form. Depending on how you really make the flame or whatever the fire, it gets a form. Air is everywhere. It doesn't have any specific form. Then comes water element. Water then comes, yes, sound also travels through the water, and it is touchable, and the water has a form. What form? You just drops or ice or whatever, and any container that you put, it really takes that form. And the extra quality which is not there in the other three so far covered is taste. Because in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, I am the taste of the water. Actually, water is very tasty. We don't really, because everything is all there. When all the colors are together, there, it becomes white. The same way, water has all the taste, in fact. Okay? So that is water. Then the earth. So then earth element actually is formed by, it needs Akash, it needs air, it needs fire, it needs water, and that is how the earth actually comes into picture. So earth element, yes, sound can travel, it is touchable, it has form, it has taste, yes, and that's what the taste, what you see from all the plants and vegetables and fruits and all this is actually specific to the earth. And the quality, so this quality is something special which is called smell. Aroma. The aroma is only unique to only earth. Now every Brahmanda, if you see, it has, so then when, remember the, Biraj Purusha is actually manifesting that into so many, what, so many, the material world. Where do all these Brahmandas reside? It resides in, Vishnu's navel. See the navel? There is a small line that really goes up. 14 planetary systems get formed. And they are all hanging there. On the top planetary system is Satyaloka or Brahmaloka, where Lord Brahma is manifested there. And then from Brahma's eyebrow, Lord Shiva appears, and he then becomes 11 Rudras. So he takes care of the destruction business. And Brahma takes care of the creation business. And Vishnu is the one who is overall maintaining everything. So who is this Vishnu? Three Rupa Vishnu. Vishnu has three forms. One is, what is that? Mahavishnu. Then you have this Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu and also Kshirakata Sai Vishnu. So there are three Vishnus. This Vishnu we are talking about is the Vishnu from whom Brahma appears. This is not Mahavishnu. You have to be careful. No, this is not. Alright. Now, so I just talked about the elemental creation. Who is supplying the elements? That is coming from Mahavishnu. He is the one who really supplies everything. But then who is the behind to really make everything happen, to make the elements, everything manifested? There is one more Shakti which is also involved. That is Durga Devi. Because Durga Devi is the one who really eventually is in charge of all the Brahmandas. He is the jailer. Okay? So this is how the whole thing comes. So in fact, Lord Krishna only thinks about creation. He doesn't really directly involve. He thinks about creation. And then his expansion that, who is Mahavishnu, then takes over that and then looks at the Prakriti, who is Durga Devi, okay, who is Mahamaya, and then the universe, actually the Virat Purusha, everything, whatever I talked about that, we have Durga also involved in every one of them. Okay, so Sarga was elemental creation, because you need an element. How? Because suppose you are talking about a brick, all right, so we are making a brick. To really make the brick, you need clay. So that clay is the one which is Sarga. That is what that is supplied by Mahavishnu. After that, he doesn't really get involved there. He is only breathing out, and then when the time comes, he just breathes, all the Brahmandas back again. He just absorbs back again. That's all he does. But then second one comes Visarga. Visarga is, you remember clay is there, but it is not still something is made. You need to make a brick means there must be some intelligence. And in fact, the Jivatmas are really so much occupied in creating, so many things they are interested in. So, usually what happens, Brahma is actually happened to be a Jivatma, who is really very, very highly developed. Very highly developed. So Brahma performs the secondary creation. It's like what? Clay is supplied by Mahavishnu, and the brick is made by using the clay, and that is Brahma. Okay? So because some intelligence has to be there to make the brick. Clay cannot automatically by itself can become all of a sudden. No, it's not possible. It's not like the Big Bang theory in full way as they are climbing. No, there has to be intelligent also. But that is what the part they really don't understand. And Brahma creates all the living beings. How he is doing it? He's not really manufacturing jivas. Jivas also supplied by who? By Lord Mahavishnu. Because from his belly, the jivas are also actually part of that. But the only thing is, I was talking about only Sarga, that is elemental. Then when the second thing, this is Visarga, that is when Brahma is coming to picture, he picks the jivas, and then he said, okay, all right, you jiva, you take birth like this. This is the species that you have to take the form in, and he brings down the jivas from the belly of Mahavishnu, and according to their past karmas, he assigns the body and life. At the time of birth, Lord Brahma fixes the following. What are the things? What kind of body the jiva is to take out of the 8.4 million kinds of species? Where the jiva will be born? What will be their parents, depending on the previous karma? How long that jiva has to live? He decides. How much wealth that jiva will get in this life? He decides. Brahma decides. How much knowledge that he will receive in this life? Brahma decides that. Then the remaining is jivas are actually trying to do here, there, jumping, like the monkeys, they really try to do this and that, but the thing is, it's all controlled by already what is written there. That they cannot change. Some small modification they can do, but not the main things. It's not possible. And there are so many kinds of living beings. So many kinds, as I said, 8.4 million kinds of species. This is what Lord Brahma is really manipulating all the DNAs and all the things to really make these 8.4 million species. This is Brahma's job. He is a DNA scientist. He is a CEO of our Brahmanda. He is very, very, very knowledgeable. He knows everything, every DNA. What exactly to be done. For example, when he fixes a Jivatma to be born for a parent, he knows that karma. All right, this karma, according to the karma, he is supposed to get diabetes. Okay, put him in a parent so that the diabetes automatically passes from from his parents. So he does it. We call, because of that, that comes from hereditary. But who fixes the hereditary? Why a jiva was born to certain parents where the hereditary problem is coming? That is Brahma does that. He's a super intelligent. He is our grandpa or grandfather. And who is the grandfather? That is Krishna. Right? And how many kinds of living beings are there? Jalaja Navalakshani Stavara Lakshavimsati Krumayo Rutra Sankhyaha Pakshinam Dasalakshanam Trimsalakshani Pasavaha Chadurlakshani Manusha. This is from Padma Purana. There are 900,000 kinds of aquatics, 2 million kinds of trees and plants, and 1.1 million kinds of insects and reptiles, 1 million kinds of birds, 3 million kinds of four-legged beasts, animals, and 400,000 kinds of human species. This is all there. Nowadays, the scientists are really, by looking at these lokas, they are actually, these are mind-boggling because it matches what they are finding. There are so many species yet to be found, but it is already all the things are described. Darwin's theory of evolution. This is a big controversy among many scientists. So a lot of people say that he really got the idea from this loka. But only thing is because of his brilliance, he was not that intelligent. He was only bodily concept that he really had. But so he thought, these all the species are evolving. And this birth there will be a crow, and then the crow will be, then after that it will become transformed. It evolve into another creature and so on, and finally monkeys and then finally human being. No, he got it wrong. So he proposed a theory of bodily evolution. That is not correct. The evolution actually what is written there, that in the sloka, if you see that, look at here. It starts from all the way from the sea. Remember sea, that's where it starts there. Jalaja Navalakshani. That is exactly he is also talking about there. But then it is all, the thing is the jivas really evolve. As they really develop higher and higher intelligence, they really migrate and take up their bodies assigned by Lord Brahma. This is the real fact. So he did not understand that because he didn't have any guru. Otherwise he would have got the right meaning. So that was the secondary creation. Now the third one is Sthanam, planetary systems. Okay, so we covered Sarga, Visarga, and now we are talking about planetary system. That means how all the material planets are to be arranged in such a way so that all the species can live and execute their karmas accordingly, and so that all the karmic reactions, everything. So basically all the karma cycle, everything can be safely maintained. By whose desire? Jivatma wanted to really enjoy this world, and Krishna just thought, all right, let us give a facility for those kind of runaway jivas who doesn't really want, who don't want to be with me. All right, let me arrange some place. That is what the whole Visarga, Sthanam, everything is coming into picture. So now each Brahmanda has 14 levels. That's what, remember from the Vishnu's Nabi, that umbilical cord, inside is the 14 levels of the planetary systems. They are arranged in 7 planes. What happens there, remember some places, people say 7 lokas, some places there is 14 lokas. Actually, they don't know the real truth. Real truth is there are 14 levels, but they are arranged in 7 planes. That means, what does it mean? In a plane, there are 2 levels can be seen. Like for example, the earth is, our Bhuloka. Remember, we really saw that in the chart. Remember, Bhuloka, Borloka, Swarloka, Magarloka, like that it goes on at the top, and then also at the bottom it really goes 7 plus 7, 14. But out of these they are arranged in such a way that one plane can see another plane. That means one plane, there will be 2 levels will be there. For example, we are able to look into the Padala Loka. In fact, in the material planetary system that we see, actually some of them, they are actually belonging to the Padala Loka. but not the heavens and Purloka. They will have different planes. And for example, spirits and ghosts, they really belong to Bhuvarloka. They will be able to really see, correspond to some other plane, not with our plane. Our plane, they can see, but they cannot interact directly. Indirectly they can do. All right, now let us see. We are talking, yes, I am a big guy. I am so big, and but let us see how big we are. The earth itself is very big. And compared to this, right, we are talking about the planetary systems, right? So earth we have, also the nearby is Mars, Mercury, Pluto, Venus. They are all there because we can actually see most of the things. Actually, see morning we can see the Venus every day, very morning. Mars also because actually nearby. Mercury and Pluto, they are all actually somewhere nearby. So relatively they are put in one level. But if you really bring the Jupiter and Saturn into picture, relatively, if you see the size, the earth becomes very small. And Pluto becomes like a small, very, very small, very, very small, tiny, like a mustard seed. Uranus, Neptune actually is okay. But when you bring the sun also again, even the Jupiter, Saturn, and everything becomes so small. Pluto is almost invisible. Earth is now like a very, very small point, very, very tiny, like a mustard seed. But then you really bring another one, Arcturus. So when you bring this is actually a very big sun. Like compared to sun, this is actually so many times larger. So our sun itself is very small. And Sirius, which is also brightest star, that is also seemed to be smaller, compared to the other one. Then Pollux in between. So if you see the whole Jupiter, which was very big in our previous slides, it's only 1 pixel in size. Earth is almost invisible at this scale. Earth is very big for us. But actually, if you see the more, it's not. And now you bring Antares, Betelgeuse, and so many other things there. What happens again? These all the Sinus and Arcturus, they're all also coming. Sun is almost nothing. 1 pixel. Nothing. And now the Milky Way. So we are part of the Milky Way. So the Milky Way contains so many Brahmandas. So many Brahmandas are there. Okay? Milky Way. Where we are in. So if you see that, the whole sun itself is invisible dot. Nothing. And then so many galaxies are very, very far away. What? Light years. It is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. And now, if you see, scientists are really churning their brain because of the Hubble telescope and all those modern equipments. They are getting so much of data that they are really so fascinated. And they found something called clusters and superclusters. Right? Galaxy is there in the Vedas. Galaxy is written as Akasha Ganga. Similarly, there are names for clusters and also superclusters. It is there. I just forgot, but it is there. They are already, they are not new.
The Sun. Just one of billions of stars in a spiral galaxy known as the Milky Way. But where in the universe is the Milky Way? A team of scientists gathered data on more than 8,000 of the galaxies that surround us. They mapped each galaxy's position and movement in space. And, for the first time, they've shown that the Milky Way is part of a much larger system of galaxies, a supercluster that they have named Laniakea. The Milky Way is nested in the furthest reaches of this structure, on the outskirts. The entire universe can be seen as an intricate network of galaxies, a cosmic web. Some areas are almost empty, dark voids. Others are densely packed with galaxies in regions known as superclusters. Superclusters are the biggest structures found in the universe, but scientists have struggled to define where one ends and another begins. To map our home supercluster, a team led by Brent Tully at the University of Hawaii studied the motions of the galaxies around us in unprecedented detail. Even though the entire universe is expanding rapidly, gravity is also at work, pulling against this acceleration. By discounting cosmic expansion, the team worked out which galaxies are being pulled towards us, shown in blue, and which are being pulled away, shown in red. This enabled them to create a map of cosmic flows, the paths that galaxies migrate along, tugged at a tiny pace by the force of gravity. Using this motion, they came up with a new way to map the distribution of matter in the universe. Delving into our home supercluster, you can see that most galaxies are being pulled towards a dense centre. This is known as the Great Attractor. Our galaxy is among those sliding towards this patch of space, which dominates our region of the universe. Let's take a different view. Each circle represents a galaxy. Again, we can see most galaxies being pulled towards the Great Attractor in the direction of the arrows. Between the Great Attractor and us, the Milky Way, there's a relatively empty area, a blue void. And next to us is Virgo, a large and dense cluster whose bright galaxies have been observed from Earth for centuries. Until now, astronomers grouped us, the Milky Way and its surrounding galaxies, with Virgo and nearly 100 other clusters in a supercluster that stretches 100 million light-years across. But using this new technique, we can see that this is just the tip of the iceberg. This cluster of clusters is merely an appendage of a much larger supercluster, more than 100 times bigger and more massive. But how did the team know how to redraw the boundaries of this cosmic map? Here's our supercluster in black and a neighbouring structure, Perseus Pisces, in red. Scientists defined the boundary as the points where the flows of galaxies diverge, like water dividing at a watershed. This is where neighbouring structures shear apart.
So now you got a glimpse of course that is a long video. I don't want to really play the whole thing. I once in a while I really put the concept of Mahavishnu as it was as relevant. Remember there was a super attractor. So because these galaxies all of a sudden it just comes from somewhere, from nowhere, that's what Big Bang or whatever they are talking about. At the same time, some galaxies are actually getting into some, they call black holes or something, and they just vanish. What is that? That is the some place where it's like a hole, where things are coming out and then goes back again. That is exactly what Brahma Samhita is talking about. And it is comparing exactly the same phenomena of Mahavishnu. From his one pore itself, clusters and superclusters, everything comes out. Now look at how big he is. And how many, unimaginable clusters and superclusters. And they are all containing galaxies, unlimited. They are all manifesting. How can we even imagine? But we think that, wow, we are great. But we can't, if you really see the whole picture, we are not even compared to a mosquito, a dust. So everything eventually comes from Krishna. And in this case, the Sarga, Visarga, and all those eventually coming through Mahavishnu. Now also if you see that Lord Krishna's energy, whatever that he has created, that is hardly anything. Out of what he has created, only 1/4 of these, he's used up, he used energy. That is the material worlds we are talking about. 3/4 is said to be the spiritual world. So this is 3 times bigger. So everybody is saying Vaikunta, they are thinking that it's only one place they will go. It is not so. It is a vast place. Unimaginably vast place. With so many varieties. Different levels of one's bhakti, realization. That is fantastic amount of worlds, spiritual and of course material worlds. But because the scientists may not be able to understand who is behind all this, and they cannot even understand why these clusters, supercluster, they are all getting pulled sometime, then they really repel sometime, and even the whole movements by gravitation force or whatever they are talking about, it's all just, they can't grasp it. There is no way of understanding. Then how can they understand? Even if they cannot understand this, how can they understand the Lord, who is there as the root of all these manifestations? But Krishna is, even though he has Aishwarya, but what is the use of Aishwarya? He is more opulent, so majestic, right? He creates so many planetary systems. But what good is for a jiva? A jiva needs only one thing: his mercy, his affection, his love. That is the only thing that is, if at all, useful for a jivatma. Otherwise, what is the big deal? Yeah, God is so tremendous, nobody can understand. It's really beyond our imagination. But so what is our benefit? There is no use. But the opulence, but he hides his opulence for his dear devotees. He even becomes subordinate to his dear devotees. He is controlled by his dear devotees. Krishna is never found alone. He is not somewhere like a yogi or something, sitting in one place with a big beard. All right, everything I am creating. All right, you are all go, and then not like that. He is jolly. He is just enjoying. He is dancing with his devotees. He is always with his devotees all the time. He never found alone. Sometimes he becomes a son, sometimes he becomes a servant, sometimes he becomes a saka, a friend, and in Goloka he becomes a paramour, a husband. But Bhatta Jivas are trying to enjoy themselves away from Krishna. Money, meat, woman, fame, wine, soap opera, these are all kinds of nonsenses that they are so greedy about, and they are trying to enjoy themselves away from Krishna. This is pathetic. But the jivas are really this way. It is really so nonsense. Their goal is to become happy for themselves. This is where the problem is. They do not see the purpose is to surrender ourselves to the lotus feet of Sri Radha and Krishna. They do not know this is the real goal. And this is the eternal dharma of the jivas. As some of you are actually so fortunate to really attend the Jaiva Dharma class. They will be understanding what is Nitya Dharma means. A jiva's Nitya Dharma means what? He has to be together with Krishna, in the abode of Krishna, serving him and happily there. But on the other hand, they lost their way and they really wanted to enjoy outside Krishna. And in looking for this kind of nonsense, money, meat, woman, fame, wine, soap opera, all kinds of nonsense. Now, these are all the mayas who knows hooks. Remember in the cows and all, especially the ox, they put something in their nose. Remember, they really put the thing. Because I know, because my father was a farmer. We had buffaloes, we had cows and everything. So because he used to take them to the farming place to really plow and everything. Yes, yeah. Those who really give a lot of problem, what they do? We just put like that. What you really see on the picture. This is what we are all hooked up. So Durga is now pulling you here and there. Those are how? Those are the three modes of material nature. Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic. This is the pathetic situation now. We don't even understand the whole complexity behind the entire creation. We don't know who we are, what purpose we have been created here. But like animals, without even thinking, without even realizing that death can come anytime, they are really getting really lost. So many births we are taking, so many births. Birth after birth after birth. And getting a human birth is very, very rare. This is not, the human birth is not meant for wasting, like the cats and dogs and hawks do. What should we do really? What is the value of our human life? We should hear the truth from sadhus. They are the realized souls.
Value of this human life. Huh? If you cannot acquire this prem dhana, dhana means wealth. All are busy in acquiring the material wealth. Isn't it? Money, 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 money. Brighter than sunshine, sweeter than honey. Isn't it? All are busy. Day and night, toiling very hard. Gordhover motyo. Ami puri purishram. Like that. Toiling like ass, you see. Toiling so hard like an ass. How to earn money, how to earn money, how to earn money. So much money required to pay so much rent, so much taxes, this requirement, this requirement, this requirement. Isn't it? Why are you doing like that? Such a fool. And for whom are you doing? For whom are you doing? Such an ignorant fool, builder soul, doesn't know it. What's the real need? The real need is this Krishna prema. You understand? Labdha sudalavidam bhushambhavanti manasya marthada manityam bhiyadhira. Srimad Bhagavatam says, repeatedly says, Labdha sudalavidam bhushambhavanti manasya marthada manityam bhiyadhira. After undergoing lakhs of species of life, you have gotten this human birth. It is known as rarely achieved birth, dullabham manusam janmam. This is dullabham manusam janmam. This is rarely achieved birth. Purpose of this birth, what? What is the purpose?
Develop Krishna prema.
Yeah, purpose of this birth is love. Get Krishna prema. Labdha sudravidam bahusambhavante manusya marthada manityam apiyadhita. Yeah. This rarely achieved birth, human birth, you have gotten, you should understand, after undergoing lakhs of species. And this is for temporary period you have gotten it. For temporary period, any moment it will finish. Yes. ये जीवन अनित्य किए जाने का हर आज ही मृत्यु काल हो Who knows? Death will come today. Do you know? Such uncertainty is there. Well, very temporary. Short period you have gotten this human birth. And purpose is to get Krishna prema. That is Supreme Purushartha, fifth Purushartha. You understand? This purpose is that.
So that is the purpose. But how many jivatmas in this world really realize that? Hardly any. We are just absorbed in our daily mundane, just for amassing wealth. That is the only reason that we are really, we are actually just wasting the time. If it is not meant for the real purpose of our life, if we waste our life in anything else, we cannot get it back. He is not going to give another body, another human body if you really waste it. So Krishna prema is the only goal. It does not belong to material world at all. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought it here for a limited time. Because Krishna prema is nothing to do with the material world. Until he came 500 years before, Krishna prema was not at all taught by anyone. Even all the big acharyas, And even Mahavishnu comes and Narayana comes and Vishnu who comes, they won't be able to talk this Krishna Prema. It is not in their agenda. They cannot. It can be taught only by Lord himself. And he also has to come with his potency, Khaladini Sakti, who is Radharani. So that is why he comes together. So that he can give that thing by example. So who can give Krishna Prema? Big Panditas cannot give Krishna Prema. Big leaders cannot give Krishna Prema. Only a pure devotee can give. In fact, we are so blessed to have our Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada. They are all so wonderfully, they are all so pure. They can give. Yes, they can give because they have it.